Good morning. Namaste to each of you. Thank you for joining me this morning to honor your mind and your body and your spirit. Let's just take a moment to become present. Find a nice, comfortable seated position on a block or a pillow, somewhere where the back of your spine, the back of your neck can sit nice and long and tall, opening up your chest, opening up your diaphragm, and opening up your heart. Let's gently close our eyes and soften our thoughts. Soften our eyes. Soften our shoulders. Soften our heart. Observe your breath as it is, soft and gentle, breathing life into you with each inhale and relaxation with each exhale. Feel the grace of being present, returning to that awareness again and again. You may open your eyes now. For this morning's intention, you may think of a positive word or phrase to have with you on your mat and perhaps carry with you throughout the day. This morning's intention I'd like to talk about is asanas. Asanas is the third limb of Patanjali's 8 limbs of yoga. Most of us were introduced to yoga by taking a yoga class, where we wiggled into and wiggled out of poses. These poses are asanas. We learned Tadasana, which is mountain pose. We learned Uttanasana, which is forward fold, and Virabhadrasana, which is warrior. And you notice that they all have that asana as the suffix. Asana is Sanskrit for seated, and the original asana was developed for meditation, so the yogi could be comfortable being seated within oneself. That is the whole purpose of asanas, being seated within oneself. An asana practice would be done before meditation to prepare the mind and the body to be still for a long time, or it would be done after to relieve your body from stiffness, and perhaps both, front and back. So fast forward hundreds, if not thousands of years, we have extracted the asanas from the 8 limbs of yoga and consider it a standalone form of exercise. An asana practice is now about keeping us mobile by inviting poses into our bodies that add to our flexibility, to our strength, and to our balance. But let's look at the placement of asanas, that third limb on the 8 limbs of yoga. It is behind the yamas, which is the number one limb, how to interact with the world. And number two limb is the niyamas and how to interact with yourself. So the yamas, such as kindness and non-excess, and the niyamas, such as self-discipline and self-study, are important guidelines for our asana practice. We want the pose to serve you, not you serving the pose. So for our pranayama, our breathing technique, which will be the fourth limb next week, there's a breathing technique called Ujjayi. Why do I get stuck on my Sanskrit? Anyway, Ujjayi Breath. Ujjayi. There we go. Ujjayi. And it's the soundtrack to our asana practice. It's that Darth Vader breath, and you can hear it. It's also known as, maybe this is how I should describe it, as ocean breath, because it's like holding that seashell, that conch seashell, up to your ear and hearing the ocean in it. So there's a audible part to that breath, so that you can actually listen to it and judge how your breathing is. So a shallow breath, you can't quite hear it, and a nice, strong, steady breath, you'll be able to hear that. So it's a breath that's layered on top of our Deirdre, the complete breath, which goes from your stomach to your ribs, to your chest. And its intention is to quiet the mind while it increases oxygen and slows the flow of breathing. So those are other benefits, besides just kind of honing in on how you're doing. Going back to that being seated within oneself, that's what we're trying to achieve here. So Ujjayi, there we go, Ujjayi breath. That Darth Vader, it's in the back of your throat. And it's like breathing into a mirrored glass, but with your mouth shut. And then when the inhale, it's that sound that Darth Vader makes. So we'll be doing that coming up. But that Ujjayi breath is the soundtrack to our asana practice. And I'm going to go to the mat, and I'm actually going to bring my glasses with me in case I get into a situation I can't read. And we're joined today by Walla and Oscar. All right. Be comfortable? He's already in the Shavasana pose. So for the basics of asanas, there are actually 84 traditional asana poses with variations or modifications to suit your body, suit yourself. Again, have the pose serve you, not you serve the pose. So the focus is, I mentioned a minute ago, balance, strength, flexibility, and restorative. And to have those, you have different types of poses or asanas. They can be seated, they can be standing, they can be reclining, either prone or recline, prone or recline, or supine, I guess. And they could be twists, they could be bends, and they can be inversions. So the inversion is when your heart is higher than your head. And you do need to be careful about inversions if you have glaucoma or high blood pressure. But other than that, if you don't have any medical issues, they're actually quite medicinal in themselves, in that they get your lymph system going in a different direction, and kind of cleanses and purifies your lymph system. And then with the asanas, there's ability, there's beginner poses, there's what's considered intermediate, there's what's considered advanced, and then there's what's considered master. And the master, I don't do in this class. I consider those kind of the pretzel poses. I think you have to have special body to do that. And it's not that you can't work toward it, but for my age, it's probably not appropriate to work toward those. So advanced is something that I can work toward. And we'll actually be doing one advanced pose today. We'll be doing 8 intermediate poses, and the rest of them are beginner poses. And I'll point out the intermediate and the advanced as we go along. So, basic seated pose, the first one we learn is having actually for meditation purposes, you should probably be up on a pillow or a block because you'd like to have your knees same height or a little bit lower than your hip crease here. So in order to do that, you would be kind of prone to sit on a pillow or a cushion to achieve that. When we're starting our asana practice, we're typically kind of having our cheekbones on the mat and the knees kind of pop up, and in various degrees for various people. Ankles are crossed here, or if you like, you can have them side by side. That lowers your knees a little bit. But the idea of the basic seated pose, it's actually a restorative pose, and it's the pose that meditation would take place in. So envision if you are a 5-minute, 10-minute, 20-minute plus meditator, in getting into a comfortable seated position so that you can be seated within oneself for that duration is the idea here. So let's start with the basic seated pose and fingertips to the mat, and we'll do that Ujjayi breath. And we'll slowly bringing our hands up overhead on big inhale. So it's that Darth Vader sound. And then exhale. It's that sound we make when we're trying to fog up a mirror. Inhale again, Darth Vader. And exhale. Inhale up. And exhale down. I'm going to do this 2 more times, and I'm not going to cue you. I just would like you to close your eyes and listen to your breath as you're bringing your arms up and down and around. And just really focus on the sound that breath makes, and make it nice and even with your hand movement. So you could begin. I'll meet you at the end. There. And I hope you notice that that nice even breath, that intake of air with and the way that the Ujjayi worked created a nice balance in the breath. Alrighty, so we're going to do some sun twists too. So again, bringing our arms up on the inhale and then twisting to the left and bringing our right hand down on the left knee, left fingertips behind the hips, twisting our torso to the left, sending our gaze straight ahead. And this obviously is a flexibility pose, and it's in the summertime. We were talking about Ayurveda, the Pitta season. It's a good pose to have during the summer, kind of twisting you out and kind of think, bringing that humidity out of myself. So then we'll sweep up and we'll bring our hands over to the other side, coming into a twist on the other side. You gonna stay with us today, Oscar? You gonna stay? That'd be nice. And then we'll come back to center. We're gonna send one leg out, keeping the other foot against the inner thigh. So I have my right foot out, my toes on my right foot flexed up to the sky. We're going to do a seated revolve side stretch, and this is an intermediate pose. So you can feel the little bit of difference between a beginner pose and intermediate pose. And I think they're all valid. I don't think you need to work in intermediate all the time to achieve the benefits of that what yoga gives us, the flexibility, the balance, and the strength. So we take the backside of our right hand, place it on the inner part of the knee, bring the left arm up alongside of our ear, and then slide that right hand down to our foot, sending our gaze out, and just finding that Ujjayi breath where it's nice and even. And then we're going to twist, sending our gaze to our kneecap, and then come back up again. And we'll do that on the other side, sending the left leg out, right foot's against the inner thigh, the left leg, left toes are flexed up to the sky. Left hand comes to the inner part of the left knee. Right arm goes up along the side, and then we'll slide that left hand down toward our toes. Sending our gaze out, finding that sweet spot where our Ujjayi breath is still nice and strong, listening to it. And then coming back. Oops, I'm sorry. Twisting so that we are facing our kneecap and then coming back up. And we're going to roll down on our back, so you can either keep your knees bent or keep your legs straight. And gently roll down, just connecting each vertebra with the mat as you go down. And coming into reclined mountain pose. And mountain poses, I think reclined or otherwise, standing upright, are balance poses. And they wonder, I'm not really balanced. I'm on the mat, flat on the mat. I'm not balancing anything. But if you think about balance in a different term, different context, in that are your parts of your body balanced on the mat? So are both heels touching the mat in equal distribution of weight? Are your calves touching the mat? Are you balanced that way? Is one kind of off the mat? Or are they both kind of balanced on the mat equally? And then again, just kind of do that body check all the way up. Hips, are they balanced on the mat, or is one kind of lifted a little higher than the other? Shoulders, are they both balanced and connected to the mat equally? Just kind of feel that connection and feeling balanced that way. So then we're going to send the sole of our right foot up to our knee, and then take the right ankle, placing it on the left leg, and coming into reclined pigeon pose. And you can go from, and actually the full reclined pigeon pose is a beginner pose, but you can stop at any point and make it your own pose. So this is the full expression of the pose, and it is considered a beginner pose. So then you interlace your hands behind your left thigh and gently guide that left leg toward your chest. And let's activate our Ujjayi breath again. And we'll place the left foot on the mat and slide it all the way down. And that reclined pigeon is a flexibility move, as will this one be. So we're going to keep the right foot on the left leg and guide that right knee over to the left, and just twisting gently of our spine. And then again, sending our right foot down, going back to reclined mountain, finding that balance. Everything's nicely connected to the mat. And we'll slide the right foot or left foot up to the right knee, creating that figure four, and then bringing the left ankle onto the right leg, and then bringing that leg up into reclined pigeon, interlacing the hands behind the leg, and gently guiding that thigh toward our chest, and then activating the Ujjayi breath. And then setting the right foot on the mat, sliding it down, tipping the left knee toward the right side of the mat for a reclined twist. And then we'll bring both knees back up to our chest, give them a nice hug. And we'll roll up, or you can roll over to the side and make your way back up. And we're going to come into tabletop pose. Crossing over, coming into tabletop. And tabletop is a balanced pose. And again, we're not like in the air balancing. So it's what I was just mentioning about reclined mountain. It's really feeling that even distribution of weight into the mat so that we're balanced on both sides, that we don't have one arm pushing down harder than the other. We're just trying to balance this connection in the mat. Our knees are right below our hips and navel's tucked to the spine. And we'll Send our nose gently to the right and do a few head turns here. And then over to the left and then back to center. And gently just swing from one side to the other. Maybe find that Ujjayi breath again as your soundtrack. Alrighty, and then two cat cow, and that is a strength and flexibility pose. So we're gonna round our back on the exhale, dropping our head and tailbone down, and then lifting our head up, sending our gaze straight ahead, tailbone is up. And these poses, how they're considered, what type of pose, if it's a strength or flexibility, is based on this app that I have called Yoga Studio. And that's how they classify these poses. So some of them I have a little question about. Like I think this one, cat cow, they said strength, but I'm like, well, I'm thinking it's flexibility. But and it's in tabletop pose, so that's balance. So you have all of them going on. You have it all going on. We'll just do a few more. And then come back to tabletop. And then we'll bring our knees together so they're touching in the center. And we're going to go into bird dog. So we're going to extend the right leg out. And again, try to find that balance in your hands, that even distribution of weight in your hands. And then we'll lift the left arm up. So this actually, they considered a strength move. I'm thinking, okay, balance as well. And it is an intermediate pose. So we'll point the toes on the inhale, flex the toes, pointing them down towards the ground. On the exhale, point inhale, flex 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 exhale, point inhale, and then bring everything back down. And I don't know if I mentioned, but it is an intermediate pose. And that one you can make an advanced pose by, reaching back and connecting your hands with your feet and such. There's a lot of modifications you can do to make it more beginner to more advanced. So lifting our left side up now, left leg up, lifting the right arm up, point inhale, flex exhale, 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 and bring everything back down. And then we're going to go to a modified side plank. So, or modified plank. So we're going to kickstand our left foot out, outside of the mat. Bring our left wrist right below the left shoulder. Send the right toes down to the bottom of the mat. And we'll sweep our hand up to the sky. And you can follow your hand with your eyes. And then bring it back down again. And that is a beginner pose. So if you want, you can, again, make it your own. Maybe make it into an intermediate pose by lifting the hand up again and lifting the leg up at the same time. And then bringing both back down. And then one more time, your choice, either beginner or intermediate style or level. And then back down again. And we'll do that on the other side. Kickstand the right foot out, sending the left toes down at the bottom of the mat. Right wrist is below the shoulder. Sweeping the left hand up to the sky. And then back down again. And then try an intermediate version, lifting the hand and the leg up. And then back down. And one last time, lifting the hand and leg, if you wish, up. And then back down. Alrighty, coming back to tabletop. We're going to tuck our toes under, walk our hands back to the balls of our feet. And this would be a balance pose. And then pushing down, coming up to mountain pose. So the squat is strength and balance. And then with our toes pointing to the long or straight edge of the mat, we're going to lift them up off the mat and then bringing back down, lifting the heels up off the mat and bringing them back down and just feeling that grounded connection to the earth. And as I mentioned, when we were in the reclined mountain pose is considered a balance pose. And I was kind of scratching my head about this one as well. But then if you close your eyes and just stand there, you realize that you're kind of, well, at least I am, a little wobbly. I'm like, oh yeah, that I have to kind of really think about it to become still and balanced in my feet, as people, a lot of yoga teachers call four corners of your feet. My feet are kind of small. I think of them more as triangles instead of having four corners, but having those feet planted solid and having the stillness in my body for mountain pose, I do have to kind of balance. So we'll do that, and then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead, and then sending our hands down to the mat, bending our knees as we go forward fold again. That would be a flexibility, all the forward folds, all about flexibility. And then bringing hands to the shin, half forward fold, nice flexibility there. And then sending the crown of the head down to the mat. And sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. Bringing our hands up overhead as we come up onto our tippy toes for palm tree. And this is an advanced pose. I think when you need to engage your brain a little bit more, that kind of makes it cross that line from beginner to intermediate. So then we'll bring our hands back down, bring our heels back down with control. And we'll do that 2 more times, sweeping our hands up, coming up onto our toes, really focusing on the balance. And then lowering again, coming back down. And one last time, sweeping up. Coming back up onto our tippy toes. Take a nice big Ujjayi breath. And then lowering back down. We'll bring our hands all the way back down to the mat. And inhale, bring our hands to our shins. And then sending the crown of our head down toward the mat. And then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. Palms come together. And then we'll bring our right hand down to our right thigh and slide it down toward our knee for supported side stretch. And that is a flexibility move. And then back up again. And then the left hand comes down, sliding it down to the left side, left knee. And then back up again. We'll do that one more time on each side. Right hand comes down, tipping our torso over to the right. Feel that flexibility. And then back, left side. And then back up. And bringing our hands back down to the mat, bending our knees as we go. Forward fold. Hands come to the shins for half forward fold. Crown of the head goes down toward the mat for forward fold. And sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. Palms come together. And then we're going to have our arms come out forward at an angle. So you can either have it at an angle or straight out at shoulder height. And we're going to go into chair pose. So whichever you're comfortable with, straight out from the shoulders, more beginner. And chair pose is considered a beginner, and it's a strength pose. So tucking the navel to the spine, we're going to lower our hips, keeping our knees behind our big toes. Coming down toward the mat. And then coming back up again. And we'll do that 2 more times. And again, you can adjust your arms, maybe have them a little higher up this time, bringing our hips down to the mat, toward the mat, not to the mat. And then back up again. And one last time, your choice for the arms. And then back up again. And then we'll bring our hands back down to the mat, bending our knees as we go. Inhale, bringing the hands to the shins, nice flat back. Sending the crown of the head down toward the mat. And then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. Palms come together. And palms come into heart center. And then we'll come into this supported back bend, which is a strength pose. So hands on our hips, fingertips pointing down, shins tucked to the chest, shoulders are relaxed, and then roll back, tipping our shoulders back, and then finding that nice sweet spot so you can keep your breath nice and even. Maybe activate a few Ujjayi breaths here. And then come back up to mountain pose. So, moving right on. We're going to sweep our hands all the way up overhead. And then bring our palms down to the mat, bending our knees as we go. We'll send the right foot back, coming into runner's lunge. So this is a strength pose. We have our left knee over the left ankle. The right leg's really activated, pushing the right heel back. You can feel that activation in the leg, that strength in your legs. And then we're going to send that left leg back as well, coming into plank pose. And plank is a strength pose as well. The shoulders are right above the wrists. Fingers are splayed out. Heels are pushing back like what we were doing in runner's lunge. And then here's the advanced pose. This is chaturanga. And you can either do knees, chest, chin, bringing your knees down, your chest down, your chin down. And that's a beginner way of coming back down the mat. Or if you'd like the advanced, and what makes this advanced, there's a very specific way of doing it. And you would push your heels to the back, and then push your toes forward. So you're kind of on your tippy toes, you're bending your arms, and your arms kind of stay even with the mat before you land, where I kind of did belly flop. So that's what makes it advanced, because the strength in your arms has to be at a certain point for you to be doing it in a proper way. And I'm going to put quotes around proper. I think either knees, chest, chin, or chaturanga can be done in multiple ways. So that being said, we're going to come into cobra, keeping our elbows tucked to our ribs, lifting up. This is a flexibility pose. And then coming up and down into child's pose. And child's pose is considered by that Yoga Studio app a flexibility pose. But it's a pose that instructors often say, if you're feeling overdone a little bit on your mat, come into child's pose. And I think they're suggesting to use it as a restorative pose. So think of it either way. And then we'll come up to tabletop, tuck our toes under, come up into downward dog. And downward dog is a strength pose. And as you see, my head is below my heart, so it's an inversion. So and then we'll walk our feet up to our hands, coming into forward fold, lifting our hands up overhead, palms come together, palms come to heart center, and then we'll come into wide-legged stance. And there's two versions of this. One is having your toes pointing out to the edges of your mat, heels tucked in. This one, we're going to have our toes in slightly, heels out slightly, a tad pigeon-toed, if you will. And we're going to come down straight forward. So this pose is, we have balance on this one. So you balance either way, again, with your toes out, toes in. Certain things that you want to do will require your toes to be in a certain alignment. So for goddess, they're out. For what we're going to do now, they should be in. So getting back to the inversion. So we're going to, here's a modification. If you don't want to have an inversion, you would hinge at the hip and just kind of come straight out, having your heart at the same level as your head. And when you place one fingertips down, you might need a block here. And then send the right hand up to the sky. And then back down. Send the left hand up to the sky. And back down. If you like an inversion, you can bring your head down toward the mat. And then sending the right hand up to the sky. And then the left hand up to the sky. And then we're going to bend our knees slightly, bring our hands to our hips, and bring our torso up to a wide-legged stance again. We're going to send our feet, our toes, in the direction of the left side, coming into Warrior Two. So our left knee's over our left ankle, back foot is nice and snug in the mat at a 45-degree angle. We'll send both arms up to shoulder height. Chest is open to the long side of the mat. And this is a strength move. And I love the Virabhadrasanas, the warrior poses. Warrior Two that we're in is about strength. Warrior One's more about flexibility. And of course, Warrior Three is about balance. So looking at our front fingertips, we're going to lift those fingertips up to the sky, dropping our back hand down, coming into reverse warrior. And this is actually considered advanced. And then bringing our left forearm down to our left thigh. We'll extend side angle, bringing our right hand up to the sky. This is about, what is this one? It's about flexibility. And this is a beginner style. And if you want to make this pose into an intermediate pose, you would send your left hand down to the mat. So that beginner becomes intermediate. And then we're going to come back up to downward dog. And straighten our front leg out. Sending our left fingertips forward and then down into triangle pose. And this pose is about balance, according to the app. I think it's all three: strength, balance, and flexibility. And it is considered by them a beginner pose. So we'll come back up to Warrior Two. And then we're going to bring our feet together, sliding our feet together so that we are in mountain pose. And then we're going to go into tree pose, which is pretty obvious. It's a balance pose. And you can do that one of three ways: toe on the mat, heel on your ankle, or sliding your foot up to your calf, or sliding it all the way up. And this is a balance pose, which is considered intermediate. Again, I think because you have to engage your brain even more with this pose. Whoop, whoop, whoop. All right, let's do that all on the other side. So back to mountain pose. We're going to sweep our hands up overhead. Exhale, bringing it down. We're going to send the left foot back into runner's lunge. This time, strength pose. And then send the right foot back to plank. Plank pose. Again, strength pose. Great for your core. And again, either knees, chest, chin, or if you try the advanced pose that we're going to do in the class is the proper way of doing a chaturanga. So you're pushing off with your toes, coming down, keeping your elbows like little grasshopper legs. And then we're going to push into cobra for flexibility. And push up and down into child's pose for flexibility, or as I think, for restorative. I mean, the body is still active, it's not relaxed entirely. And then back up to tabletop. Tuck our toes under, coming into downward dog. And we'll pedal out here for a moment. This inversion pose. Again, great for the lymph nodes. Not so great for glaucoma or high blood pressure. And then we'll walk our feet up to our hands, coming into forward fold. And then sweeping our hands all the way up overhead. And then hands come to heart center. And we'll come into wide-legged stance. This one with our toes tucked slightly in, heels tucked slightly outward. And again, you can use the non-inversion pose by just hinging at your hip, having that nice flat back like you do with half forward fold, sending your hands down, raising your right hand up to the sky, and then back down again, raising the left hand up to the sky, and back down again, or the inversion, where you're coming down, and your hand's really on the mat, sending the right hand up to the sky, and then back down, sending the left hand up to the sky, and back down. Bending the knees, bringing the hands to the hips, and then pivoting up, coming back up to that wide-legged stance. And this time we're going to swing our toes to the right, coming into downward dog, warrior two. And we'll send our arms up to shoulder height, looking at our right fingertips. And then we'll send the left hand down and the right hand up to the sky for a reverse warrior, coming into an intermediate pose. And then setting the right hand, forearm down to the right thigh, sweeping our left hand up to the sky for extended side angle, beginner style, or bringing our right hand down to the mat for intermediate. And then back up to warrior two. We'll straighten out our front leg, reach our right fingertips forward, and then down for triangle pose. And I can feel the balance part of this pose. And then back up again to warrior two. And then release that. And we're going to come to mountain pose and do tree pose on the other side. I find myself a nice flat spot here. And then again, you have your three options: toe on the mat, heel on the ankle, or calf on the, or sole on the inner calf, or all the way up to the thigh. Good. Maybe not. Definitely advanced pose. I mean, not advanced, but intermediate pose. You have to lock in, engage your brain. Alrighty. So let's bring our pinky toes to the edges of the mat. Heels are tucked in. Bring our hands to heart center, Anjali Mudra. And then slowly lowering our hips down to the mat. We're going to come into a wide-legged squat. Wide-legged squat is a strength pose, and it is considered an intermediate pose. And then bring our sit bones down to the mat. And we'll come into stack pose. So we're seated on the mat. We're creating this nice L shape with our body. Toes are flexed up to the sky. We push down with our fists. Really create that nice connection with the mat. And this is actually a strength pose. And then we're going to take our left foot, take it on the outside of our right knee, and then we're going to wrap our right arm around that left knee, sending our left fingertips behind us for a twist. This is the flexibility. And then release that. Coming back to staff pose, we'll do that on the other side. Right foot lands on the mat on the outside of the left knee, wrapping the left arm around the right knee, right fingertips are in back. And you can send your gaze kind of straight forward where your hip is, or maybe a little bit more intermediate by sending it over your right shoulder. And then release that. And we'll roll down to the mat, keeping our legs straight or bent, or I like to use the express version at this point, bringing the knees to the chest, giving them a nice hug. And this is a pose, you notice it's the same thing as what we're doing in child's pose, only flipped over, if you will. So again, it could be considered a flexibility pose, or in my mind, I like thinking of it as a restorative pose, just like child's pose can be used. And then we'll send our arms out at shoulder height. Send our knees down to the mat on the right side. And when they've landed, you can send your gaze over to your left fingertips. Truly a flexibility pose. And then bring your head back to center, lift your legs back to center, and then lower the legs over to the left side. Once they've landed, send your gaze over to the right. And then sending your head back to center, knees back to center. We'll come to the most important pose of any practice, the asana, which is Shavasana. And that is a restorative pose. And the idea of Shavasana is to, your body has been doing all this energetic movement and you just want to relax everything. Just let all the blood kind of flow back into all the places where it should be, kind of have that rush of blood go back to where it belongs and circulate. And it is considered the most important pose, probably outside of however you're going to sit for meditation. And there is a formula, 5 minutes of Shavasana per 60-minute practice. So that's, the guideline that they think works well for Shavasana, getting your blood nicely back to where it should be. I think of it as they say in cooking instructions that when you cook a meat, you need to let it rest. You cook your protein, and we're cooking our protein here by working it out, getting it hot and stimulated. But then you have to let it rest and let all the juices kind of come back into it. So we'll just relax here for a moment, and I have a poem for you. And it's a cute poem. And it's by Mary Oliver, and it's titled My First Yoga Lesson. Be a lotus in the pond, she said, opening slowly, no single energy tugging against another, but peacefully, all together. I couldn't even touch my toes. Feel your quadriceps stretching, she asked. Well, something was certainly stretching. Standing impressively upright, she raised one leg and placed it against the other, then lifted her arms and shook her hands like leaves. Be a tree, she said. I lay on the floor, exhausted. But to be a lotus in the pond, opening slowly and very slowly rising, that I could do.